just start. Okay. Hello, guys. Welcome to the podcast. I am here with my good friend, Diana.
Hello.
She is a physical therapist and a athletic trainer. And we're going to be talking about her life and her career, to just school and graduating and starting her own clinic, and kind of how she's navigated her path and what she learned since finishing PT school, and talking about just life. So stay tuned, listen, and enjoy.
Welcome to the Eli Kassab Experience.
All right, Diana. So say hello to the people.
Hello, people.
If you're watching, if you're listening, hello. So Diana and I met here in working Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments, right? Is it we?
I don't remember which one specifically,
I don't
but
remember which one.
we've worked a whole bunch.
Yeah, that's
together.
where our paths originally crossed.
Yeah.
And so known each other for a little while, and we talk a lot about life, career stuff, and just everything, navigating life and figuring it out all out at the same time, right?
Complicated.
It is. But anyway, but first, I know you, and I know we've met. So for those people that are listening that don't know you, don't know who you are, a couple of things about yourself, whatever you feel like disclosing, but just tell us a little bit about, I don't know, who you are, where you grew up, where you're from, and yeah.
So I'm originally from a city called Walnut. So it's up north, closer to Pomona area. Born and raised there. Ended up graduating from Walnut High School in 2010. Went to the University of the Pacific in Stockton for my undergrad degree. When I went there, I originally wanted to pursue sports medicine because I knew that I wanted to become a physical therapist. I knew that since I was in high school.
Okay, I was going to ask you, was that like since high school? Like
yeah.
So you knew that in high school?
I was lucky enough to have a mentor in high school. He was our certified athletic trainer, and he worked all of our sports. He had started a sports medicine class when I was in high school,
okay,
which was super cool and basically inspired me to become a PT. So applied to a bunch of schools, ended up going to UOP for their undergrad. At the time, it was called Health Exercise Sports Science. So it was a little bit of a stretch of a name, but basically it was on the track of becoming a physical therapist. When I went into my junior year, I realized, we have an athletic training program. I didn't know that before, and was approached by the clinical director who kind of got me interested in applying for the program.
Okay.
I applied for the program, got in, did 2 more years. So I did 5 years in undergrad. And our school actually had a PT program across the bridge. So on the other side of campus. Applied into that program and applied all around. Ended up getting into my school's program. Went to PT school there. So basically I spent about 7 years in Stockton before I moved back down to SoCal.
Okay. Dang, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm learning.
It was quite the experience. Jeez. For sure. But that's good crazy. Times. Yeah, good times.
Man. And what did you learn? Like if people are going in the same boat you were in, at least in undergrad or high school, like would you what advice, I guess now, I don't know how long, it's been a while for you, but like for people that are in high school, like what would you say to the high school people if they were looking into going into sports medicine and stuff? Would you tell them to kind of do the same thing that you did, or how would you've like kind of changed things, at least in high school, to kind of prep you in figuring out if that was something you wanted to pursue in college or not?
So definitely I would say do your research, because most people don't know if they really want to become a physical therapist or an athletic trainer until they're in the setting.
Yeah.
So internships, going out and volunteering, just getting your foot in the door, just checking it out, because you'll never know if you really want to do it until you experience what it's like to do it.
I hear you on that one.
And then the other one is, if you go into college and you want to do sports medicine, is to research the schools that you want to do, the programs that they have, and what paths they have for you. Because, there's some people that want to go into sports med but don't want to go into athletic training, like in the middle of going into becoming a PT, So it just kind of depends on what you want to do. But I would definitely say start looking around for volunteer opportunities, internships, all those types of things that just get you some experience, and then help you determine your path towards what you really want to do, for sure.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I agree with you on that one. It's kind of the similar lines of like my thought process with people and just trying to,
Mm-hmm.
recommending them just to get internships, get observation hour, just try to get just exposure in that setting to see
Totally.
if it's something you want to do or not.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
but that's awesome. You wanted to know, like, you did it so early on. But so when you graduated high school, what was your path like? So getting into the PT program, easy, hard, hard probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I feel like trying to get into PT school is one of those things where most people hit a lot of roadblocks, hit a lot of obstacles.
with grades and stuff,
Grades,
or just
yeah, and
like what types of?
for me, I definitely was not the best student in my first few years of college. I wanted to become a PT, but I didn't understand how much work and how well your grades had to be for you to get into PT school. I obviously didn't do my research, which is why I recommend anyone that wants to get into PT school to do their research. But I wasn't the best student in the first few years of college. And so the last few years of college, I literally had to dig myself out of the grave that I created and then also pursue other extracurricular activities like, joining honor societies and all that kind of volunteer opportunities to just set myself apart. And thank goodness, that definitely helped a lot. But I feel like if it takes you a few times to get into school, which actually is super common, it's one of those things where you have to just understand why you want to be a PT and why you really want to go to PT school, because the people who continue to persevere and apply continuously every single year to get into PT school, they know that they really want to do it. You know what I mean? So try not to be deterred by if you don't get in the first time. Try again and see what happens, because at the end of the day, the universe has a plan. And if you just do the right thing, like, the things will happen,
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
exactly. So, well, and so you talk about, like with going into PT school, I know you said you were passionate about it and like you enjoyed it, but like, so what specifically though? Like, I know, like, for me, sometimes it's like when I look at athletic training, there are certain aspects of it that I like, that are stood out to me as like one of my favorite things, and then it's kind of differs from person to person. So for like you personally, with like going through physical therapy and athletic training, the sports medicine field in general, like for you, what was the passion like behind it? Like, what was it for you? Was it like the patient-client interaction? Was it getting people, back to return to play? Like, what was it specifically about the profession that stood out to you personally? I know it changes from people, but for you.
Mm-hmm. So I think having an athletic trainer when I was in high school helped a lot. He was there through all of our injuries and able to kind of get us back to where we were supposed to be with just being able to play, get back on the court, because I played basketball when I was in high school. Nice. Now, if we looked at athletic training and physical therapy, they're quite different in if you just what you thought of what athletic training and physical therapy is, right? Most of the time when we think PT, we think just in a clinic. Most of the time when we think ATCs, we think on the field, right? So within both, I definitely have my favorites of the aspects of each. So with athletic training, I think one of the coolest things is to be able to make decisions in a very short amount of time. So working the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments, we don't have a lot of time to think and to make a good decision for the athlete, to promote athlete safety, because that's our goal, right? And another thing I really, enjoyed about athletic training was like the community that my program had, that we were all working towards the same goal. And, my preceptors were always, you're never too good to clean the water coolers. You're never too good to mop the floors. That's like the type of mentality that I really enjoyed. And doesn't matter if you're a student, doesn't matter if you're certified, you know, like everyone's here to do the same thing, and that's to take care of our athletes, to make sure everything's prepped for them, because, you know, they're our number one priority. I think with PT, I really enjoy just like the rehab side. So critically thinking, now you have a little bit longer of time to figure out, okay, what is my plan? Getting this athlete back to whatever they're doing, or getting this person back to whatever they're doing, right? So just kind of depends on the type of setting you're working with, the type of people that you're working with. But at the end of the day, if you know your goals from your clients, you know exactly, you know, what direction you want to bring them into. So kind of just helping people live a better life.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I got you. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's always interesting for me, at least. Anyway, I like always to hear people's perspectives on their profession, because everyone has like a certain aspect of it that they enjoy, more or better than others. And so that's why it's always like, yeah, interesting. I always like to find out who that is from, person to person.
Mm-hmm.
So let's fast forward. So you go through PT school, you're passionate about, okay. So you find out what you want to do. You go to college, you get ready to go to PT school, you get your athletic training and your PT license. Now let's talk about, like, we get what you learn in school. You know, you graduate, you learn your fundamental skills, your foundation, your knowledge, you get your degree, you get your license. Okay. And now it's like, okay, post-graduation, now it's, what do you like? Tell me about like life after you graduated from the program. Cause I feel like everyone in school, it's pretty easy. Your semester's planned out, your clinical rotations are planned out. It's pretty straightforward. So, tell me a little bit about like post school. What was it like? What did you do? Like, what were some of the drawbacks? Like, and like, tell us some of the stuff that your professors didn't teach you in school. What did you learn out in the real world once you finished PT school?
Oh, so much.
Oh man. All right. Buckle up, guys. Here we go. Okay.
So graduated PT school September 2017. I didn't take a break between undergrad and grad school, which I'm really, really blessed and grateful for. But I took a few months off. So right after I passed my licensure exam, I took a few months off, ended up going on a family trip, and then did another trip to Australia, New Zealand with some friends. Yeah, so it was really great. Then the new year came around, so 2018, I figured, hey, maybe it's time for me to look for a job. Started working at a orthopedic private practice, insurance based in Laguna Niguel.
Okay. And how did you find that job? I always like to ask this question. Like, was it just, did you see it, you applied for it and you got it? Was it through networks, or like, what was the process of getting that job?
I applied for it on Indeed. So went on Indeed.
Okay. Yep.
Saw the listing, applied for it, and then got an interview. So came all the way down here for an interview. And then a few days later, they contacted me saying they have an offer, and I took it, moved down here.
Okay.
And started working in February 2018.
Okay, February of 18.
So, yeah, it was a sports triathlete. There were a lot of triathletes that we treated, swimmers and cyclists and all that type of population. But it was like your regular, general population as well, kind of type of clinic. So. So I worked there for about a year and a few months. I would say February, March, April, a year and 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was it, like, experience wise? Like, and be honest here, they're probably not watching or listening. So working in that, in that like clinic setting, like, I guess, a year and 3 months, you said, what did you learn within, those like 15 months, that you just weren't expecting, maybe coming out of school?
I think the first thing that, any new grad is excited to do is just to start practicing, right? We trained so much, we learned so much, and we did our clinical rotations that we're just excited to interact with people, And so I think you spoke about this a little bit in one of your previous episodes about soft skills. Yep. I think that's one of the biggest things that, unfortunately, PT schools don't have time to cover, right? We have to go through such an intensive curriculum in such a short amount of time so we could pass our licensure exam, right?
Yeah.
But the soft skills and learning how to communicate and learning how to, you know, be able to adapt to the different types of personalities, like now that is a skill.
Yep.
And
I
that was
gotcha.
definitely something that as a new grad you had to learn, you know. I guess during the rest of my time there, it was I did enjoy most of it, you know. I had fantastic coworkers. You know, the people that I work with were amazing. I couldn't really complain about that because we always had a good time. The aides to
Yep.
the PTs to the front desk, everyone was just, we had a lot of fun, you know. And I was just happy to get my reps in, you know, to be able to see patients. It was one of those clinics like typical, you know, insurance-based clinics where they schedule patients 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Our clinic was 20 minutes, every 20 minutes. So you could see up to
Man.
18 to 19 patients a day, depending on
Yeah.
how well you were doing. Volume. Huge. That is one of the reasons why I decided that, you know, I couldn't work in a place like that anymore because of just strictly the volume and feeling like I was giving up quality patient care just to get more people in the door. I just didn't feel like that was ethical to me. Which, I mean, you know, everyone has their preferences. It just didn't work for me.
Yeah. And what do you think? And sorry to stop you.
No,
I'm just wondering, like with the clinics, like, I mean, why do you think that is? With like as far as the setup goes, why the increase in volume? Is that like and this is on your own personal individual opinion? This is not fact, but is it like from a monetary perspective? Is it like a business side of things? Like why was that the layout and the format, I guess, of that, at least for that particular clinic? Because I know it's not the only one, but
yeah, no, it's actually really a really common setup. And, you know, 15 minutes is actually, you know, what we would call like a PT mill. Basically, you're getting people in and out. And, you know, they're just trying to get people in the door, out the door. And it's 20, 25 patients a day. And that's it. But, you know, this is a topic that's been pretty, you know, hot in the PT world. Of people just talk about it a lot of why it happens. And part of it is you have to think of these practices, they're still businesses, right? So they have to make profit. They have to have some type of income and profit in order to keep the lights on, in order to, you know, like I knew that our clinic, they wanted to, you know, purchase more clinics and expand and all that. So if you didn't have any like revenue coming in and any money to spare, you're not able to do that. And I mean, the second reason is insurance reimbursements, right? So that's always really tricky topic because like every, you know, I mean, 10 years ago, reimbursement rates are not the same than it is now, you know? So
I gotcha.
Because of the reimbursement rates going down and it just forces some of these clinics to have to increase their volume in order to just meet what they, you know, what they need. So it's tricky.
So it was insurance-based clinic is what
right,
and that's what kind of, I guess, got them to function the way that they're functioning. That's oh man, okay. And was it no cash-based clients, or at least with that clinic? I'm just wondering, like, was that just all insurance-based, or was there a cash?
They did have cash services. So we had a Pilates studio, right, basically next door. And then we also had massage therapists in the back, and then also a guy who was a chiropractor / ART specialist. And so those were our cash revenues. And then we had wellness checkups and all that. So that's one of the reasons why that clinic is still doing well, is they have other streams of revenue rather than just like, you know, relying on insurance, which most clinics rely just strictly on insurance and doctor referrals and all these types of things where, you know, you're relying on these external streams of, you know, people coming in the door instead of like you going and getting these people, you know, and there's a third party that's determining how much money they're going to give you. And so it's a game, it's the insurance game, and it's unfortunate. But
Dang, that's wild. So man, so that lasted, again, 15 months for you, right? So at the end of this experience, you know, this is your first job coming out of PT school. what happens after 15 months, basically, of working here at this clinic and learning what you learned? Now what? Like, what is the, like, take me through the steps of when you actually like left, like what, you know what I mean? What was that process like?
So about 6 months before I left, I already started thinking to myself, like, I can't see myself working here for a long time, and nothing against, the people there and all that, but it was just like, I couldn't see myself in that setting.
And that was because for you personally, it was just the volume, again, the amount of just turnover that there was to the patient care and the staff provided, right?
Yeah, that plus like a little bit of that we had some, I guess, tricky things going on with management as well.
Okay, so some dynamics within the staff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So upper management, some things going on there that I didn't exactly agree with, and we butt heads, and it was one of those things where I wanted to make changes with just patient care, and they just weren't exactly open to it.
Okay.
Or they would say they would be, and nothing changed. So
you were like, okay, that's pretty much made a decision for you. Okay. So 6 months into it, you start thinking about, like, I mean, what do you start thinking about? Like
other
anything?
options, anything. I was like,
okay,
is working in a hospital better? Is working, in a different setting better? And so then I started coming across, cash PT. What is this cash PT?
Yep.
And there were a good amount of people that were already out there doing it, but I just started floating around in my Instagram and floating around just around me that I had a good mentor. He just started his practice, I think it was last January, so 2018 January.
Okay. So
he's coming up 2 years now, but he started his own, cash practice. He takes certain insurances depending now, but he's very picky when it comes to that. But I started to ask him, questions of, hey, how did you go about doing this? What are the benefits, pros and cons? Because you always have to weigh pros and cons of everything, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, after doing more research, started reading a lot more books, started listening to more podcasts that were specifically based around this concierge type practice, cash practice that people talk about, and just said, you know what? I'm going to have to start from nothing, but I'm going to be able to build it into whatever I want to build it into.
You can kind of do what you want with it.
So the freedom was what was very, like, that attracted me to, going into cash, right? And, when you're working in a more traditional setting, you're only going to be able to, and if we talk about like monetary, right, where you're only going to hit a certain ceiling before you're not going to make any more unless you get promoted to other positions, right?
Yep. Where
the beauty of cash is you make what you want to make. So whatever work you put in is towards, making more money. It's almost like endless, right?
Right.
The possibilities
as much
are
as
endless.
you physically can put into it is what you can
totally
get out.
So then started doing all that kind of stuff, and was, encouraged by a lot of my mentors to just, hey, what's the worst thing that can happen? Worst thing that can happen is it fails.
Yeah. And
you can go back and find a job, because it's only you didn't lose your license. You didn't lose your degree.
Yeah.
You can still find a job.
You still have a safety net. Yeah.
Right. So when I thought about that, and I was like, wow, that's so right. It's like the risk is so low, honestly, besides money, that, like, why not? So April, I remember what I was doing. I was sitting in my car about 30 minutes before I started my shift.
Yep.
And, I was sitting in my car, and I was like, you know what? Like, why am I putting this off? Why am I waiting? I think it's that fear that you have in yourself, doubting yourself, like, what if it doesn't work? And all those things that we always have in our brains, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? I'm going to quit today. I'm going to put in my letter of resignation today. So the first thing I did was text my roommates just for accountability, right? I'm like, if I text them, then I can't turn it back. Yep. I texted them and I said, hey guys, I'm going to put in my letter of resignation today. And they blew up my phone. what? Like, you didn't even tell us that you were going to do this.
Oh, jeez.
And I said, I texted you guys, so I had accountability.
Yeah,
Went in,
that's a good way of doing it.
went straight to one of my coworkers and told him. He was like, no
Oh,
way.
man. Oh, man.
Then I just went into my manager's office, and she kind of already had an idea because of, I guess she was seeing some of the things that I was reading and all that. And so she had an idea, but she was very supportive. That was nice. She said, I'm glad that, you're doing your thing and chasing what you want to do, which I was really appreciative of. And then so they asked me to stay a little bit longer just so they can get a replacement. So there wasn't as big of a gap between patients and all that. But then the beginning of May, I just started doing my own thing. You know what I mean?
So that's crazy, right? So now it's like almost a year and a half post, PT school. So you quit your job, but so like, what does that mean when you like start doing your own thing? Like, I'm always curious as like the little thing, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, when I decided to like start this podcast, it's like, I was on Google trying to figure like Googling how to, but so what does that process for you look like? You quit your job and you go to start that. Now, what does that mean for, whether it's, for people that are like, I don't know, at least if there are other PTs that are listening that are like trying to think about doing the same thing, what's making that jump? Like, what does that like take? Cause you go from a stable job with the income to zero income. So now like, but what are like the day-to-day like logistics and operations that are involved with, okay, you made a decision, but like now what actually happens? Like, do you jump on Google to figure out like how to, like what did you do? Like, what was the process like in like getting that just started?
So within the 6 months before I left my job, I was already looking into, how do I want to function as a business? So there's logistics in terms of what kind of business licenses you want to get, right? So there's like, do you want to, apply for an LLC, or do you want to do it like a DBA? So more of like a fictitious name that you can just function as a business under. So that's just a DBA, doing business as. And so it kind of just depends on what you're looking for in terms of liability. And that's like a topic for a whole nother time of just digging a little bit deeper into what the difference is and stuff. But I ended up filing for a DBA, and I did that through the Orange County, what is it? Just the city. The city.
Gotcha.
Went to like the city hall or whatever, and then filed it, and then it was official, and I had to like put it in a newspaper for like 2 weeks, so I was officially a business. Jeez. But the biggest thing that for any PT that wants to be I'm entrepreneur, I guess, like that's or like
or
kind
just
of like
starting their own
or like their own business. I would say one of the best resources is Danny Matei. So he owns athletes potential out in Georgia, and he's like been doing this cash PT stuff for a while, and he has a really great website with all these resources, and he has this book and called Fuck Insurance.
Nice.
And
that's awesome.
It basically is like a roadmap of the things that he did and his story of how he got to where he is, scaling his business and all that kind of stuff.
Really cool.
I would definitely look into because we have to build our logistics and our systems as well, because you go from being just a clinician to becoming like the marketing director, to the sales director, to the clinician, to the admin,
like all the admin
everything,
stuff.
To the accountant, to everything. Because in the beginning you can't hire anyone to help you, you know what I mean? So you're wearing like 7,000 hats, and you have to function off 7,000 hats. But I think what was the most helpful was being able to tap into some of those resources and talking to people, and they, people are more than willing to help. Oh yeah, you need like patient forms, like first eval forms and stuff, so they'll send it to you. Oh, just change it based on what your business is, and then all that, and then coming up with a smooth way to get patients in contact with you, and then being able to schedule them, and then obviously having a place to function out of. That's always one of those things you have to lock down early. Or I know people that function out of their home, so
and just starting out,
it just kind of depends on
going.
Yeah, the one biggest, probably the biggest piece of advice that I got from my friends, mentors, and stuff who have been in this business, they say, make sure your overhead is as low as possible, because most of the time, people who go into it and get too excited and just splurge a ton of money into it, they end up spending so much more and then realizing later that they have to work so much just to make that back.
Right.
If you're able to have a low overhead for a while at least, you're saving yourself a lot of headache in understanding that, okay, I can start building, then investing, then investing, then investing little by little, right? Because a lot of the money that I make is goes straight back into the business. I don't, none of it is like, oh, I'm just going to take this money and go on vacation. Like that's just not how it works. It's, I'm going to take this money that I made. Okay, now I'm going to put it back into maybe upgrading my like patient documentation, all that kind of stuff. Now that's going to be a couple $100s a month, and calculate it up for the year,
Jeez.
or, you go into investing it into continuing ed. So I'm a big believer in like lifelong learning. I think
for sure.
It's super important. It's something that unfortunately I know a lot of PTs that kind of don't continue after a while, and it's detrimental because medicine is always progressing. Always progressing.
Yep.
And if you don't keep up, you get lost, So I'm really blessed that a lot of my mentors are also avid learners. They love reading, they love researching, they love doing all these courses and stuff. What's the newest thing out? And granted, there's going to be a lot of new things. Now it's just a matter of what you like to do. So what you like to use, because there's a billion ways you can treat anything. And it's just a matter of you figuring it out for yourself, So
and so when you had all your treatments, your rehab, your stuff, like where did you do it out of? Did you do it out of your home, garage? Where did you find a set up shop at when you first started?
So I was lucky enough that I was introduced to a local business called OC Performance Coaches through one of my mentors who is a good friend with the owner. And coincidentally, he was looking for somebody to rent space out of the office that they had in the front. So it was basically empty. He had a few massage therapists that would, rent maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours a month, at the most. Mm-hmm. And so he was looking for somebody who was a little bit more stable, who would be more consistent. So it just so happened that I was looking for a place. So jumped in there, talked to him. He was really great. He's still has been really fantastic, just helping me keep my overhead low, helping me try to build my own practice, and encouraging me and giving me business advice whenever I need it.
Nice.
But I would say that my I guess situation is probably one of the most ideal situations. So
that's awesome.
I mean, I pay by the hour. That's magical,
Right. Yeah. Compared to what was before.
Yeah. Most of the time you have to pay by the month. So it's a monthly rent. And granted, once you get to a certain degree of seeing how many patients a week, that is actually beneficial for you, right? Versus doing hour. But because right now, I'm still building my caseload. I'm not seeing like 25 patients a week yet, which is maybe one day my goal, right? Mm-hmm. But being able to pay by the hour for how many people that I'm seeing a week has saved me so much money.
That would, because now you're not paying for unused, space. Like that's huge.
And time, right?
That's awesome.
So Rob's been great, and he's honestly one of like the nicest guys I've ever met. And he just is like, I just want to help small businesses grow. And it's really, really rare to find people who just want to invest in small businesses, And
just help. So when you started off your private practice or the clinic, like how did you? I mean, because obviously you don't have any clients, like you don't have anything. What was your first? I guess personally, how did you try to get like patients in? Did you like? Please don't tell me you went in the yellow pages.
I don't even know if that exists.
I know, right? It's done now. Internet took over.
Yeah, I mean, my first few clients were like friends.
Okay.
Friends who just
word of mouth, basically.
Yeah. And it was funny because I was just talking to one of my clients who is a good friend from high school. He hit me up right when I like left my job, and he said, "Hey, I've been having these aches and pains for a while and I haven't been super active. I want to get my body back, and I want to be able to start, maybe try jiu-jitsu one day or get back into running, but I don't know where to start. And so he was one of my first clients who came in and just helped me and pushed me, and I still see him to this day. Like, we're working on so many different things,
That's really cool.
And then my other like first client was one of my friends who I'm from the gym that I train at now, and she just got knee surgery, and so she needed some rehab, and she was like debating on doing a traditional outpatient versus seeing me. And so I was able to at least just help her, and then she felt like I provided value and was like, I want to continue. So that was really great. Yeah.
And then and then fast forward to kind of like now, is it still mainly not prioritized, but is it still mainly like word of mouth, or are you starting to do some other more like complex marketing type stuff for the clinic, like or has been the word of mouth been working well for you and you're just kind of keep doing that?
Yeah, so I mean the complex marketing stuff that I haven't really gotten to that phase yet.
Okay.
But a lot of my clients are word of mouth. It's funny because I have a friend who's also a PT, but he works in all different settings of PT, and he trains at a gym in Santa Ana called Rounders MMA. And so he was training with one of his friends, and his friend started complaining about some type of knee thing going on with with a car accident and all. And so he was like, oh yeah, I know one of my colleagues just came out and started doing her own thing. You should check her out. So the guy came to me pretty skeptical about PT. Just, I've done it before. I don't know if it's going to help me.
Right.
I went to a doctor. They told me I should just quit judo and jiu-jitsu forever.
Oh, jeez.
And,
excessive.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. And, we spent the first session basically like 40 minutes of just him telling me his story and all his frustrations with some of the things that happened in his past and talking about his goals and what he wants to get back to. So I was able to just kind of listen and kind of tell them that, hey man, like I would never tell you to quit. If anything, I want to help you get back to that. Right. Mm-hmm. Long story short, we worked through a ton of barriers, mentally, physically, of just him not feeling confident. I mean, granted, he got into a car accident and his he was almost blind, and so like getting him back to being strong, feeling strong, and that was like an amazing experience because he was like my, just almost like an ambassador patient. He started going to his gym and just started telling all his teammates, whoever had aches and pains,
and
like
started picking up some
you gotta go see Diana. Like she helped me because he recently just competed in a judo tournament and he took first place. Like it was like, a year ago,
I love it.
There was a doctor that like a physician that told him to quit. And now he's standing at the top of the podium with the gold medal. How crazy is that?
Oh man, amazing.
Yeah,
well, I'm glad. So it's been going well then so far.
Yeah. Things have been picking up a little bit. And I mean, I use Instagram as a marketing tool as well. Like people like using Instagram, and I post a bunch of videos on there of just like some of the exercises I do, like my experiences, because my main, I guess, interest group of treating is with grapplers, wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu, that kind of world, just because I think it's underserved. There's a lot. I mean, it's a sport where it's inevitable that you're going to get injured, right? It's now to what degree do you get injured?
Absolutely.
Right.
There's always something going on.
You can do as much, quote unquote preventative work as possible. It's never going to prevent the injury. But what we want to do is prepare your body enough to the point where if something were to happen, we can at least minimize the severity.
Right.
Increase the chance of you rehabbing well, rehabbing quickly, and getting back to what you want to do. Right. So that's kind of like my niche. But yeah, I mean, word of mouth has been really great. Instagram, people have messaged me through Instagram, said they want to come just check it out, and the beauty of having your own practice is you can have that leeway of, you don't have to be like, oh, you have to commit to this many visits. Like if they're skeptical, I have them just come in.
Right.
Check out, just have an eval. And then you can tell me afterwards what you think, because not everyone's going to be my ideal client, and not every ideal client wants me as a PT. Right.
So what were some of the trials, and like, so what are our, like, I'm glad that everything's going well now and it's kind of starting to pick up, but when you were starting out, what were some of the major, like the hardest parts for you starting out? Obviously, you don't know anybody, but like, I don't know, emotionally, like mentally, how did you handle it? Like, what was the toughest for you personally for the first, I don't know, however long it took before you really felt comfortable with your next step? You know what I mean? Like, you quit your job, you start your business. Obviously, there's a bunch of questions on whether or not it's working. How long into that like business venture you took before you started to be like, you know what, I think I'm going to be okay? Or maybe you're not even there yet. Like, maybe you're still like, dude, I don't even know if I made the right decision or not. Like,
Yeah.
So kind of where are you at right now? Like with that transition, are you comfortable with where you're at now as far as the stability goes? Or are you still kind of in month one where you're still like, holy cow, what's happening? What am I doing?
Yeah.
What have been the major issues and how do you feel about it? Like,
Yeah, no, like that's very real. Very, very real. I think the first few months after I left my full-time job, I spent trying to build systems. And I think one of the hardest things that lessons that I learned the hard way was, you can only do so much alone. You're going to need to ask for help, right?
Absolutely.
And when you have people who care about you, who you can ask for help, they're more than willing to help, So the first few months I was a lone wolf and I thought I would be able to just do this whole thing myself. Then I quickly realized, man, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I have no business background. I just got out of PT school a year ago, so I'm still building my confidence as a clinician.
Yeah.
What am I doing? So I started looking to PTs who have been in this realm for a while or who just started different phases of their journey, and just asked them questions, and said, hey, I'm brand new to this. I would really appreciate if we could, do some mentorship type deal. Like, I'd be more than willing to pay you for your time. Like, I think that's important because your time is money, right? And not to talk about money so much, but that's how the world works. You can't just give free things all the time, right? So I was able to find really great resources. I mean, another thing that I think another lesson that I'm still learning is patience. Like, things take time, as long as you put in the right work, things take time, and it will flourish into whatever you want it to be. You just have to be patient. But going back to, I guess, what you asked about, how long does it take for you to feel confident?
Right.
I think in the last maybe 3 or 4 months, I've definitely improved in terms of confidence as a clinician, just because I've put myself out there and done so many Con Ed courses that were super beneficial to me, with meeting the right people, surrounding myself with the right people, learning material that I think could level me up as a clinician, and challenging my critical thinking, challenging all my biases that I learned in school. That was, like, for sure, as a clinician, I think no matter what though, like, as a business owner and as a clinician, it's going to be a lifelong process of just learning, right? Mm-hmm. And I think as a clinician though, you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, I've been doing this long enough. I can see the patterns. I can almost have my hypothesis ready if someone comes in with this type of injury, right? I can almost like try to figure out a timeline of how long it would take. But as a business owner, things change all the time. And so being able to keep up with that has been a challenge. But at the same time, because I can manipulate my own schedule, I'm able to put in times where, I'm like, I want to focus a lot more today, like plan out my week. And Monday, I'm going to take a lot of time before I see patients to like look into business stuff, read or listen to a podcast or study something. And then same thing with like clinical stuff, and then I can take time off to go to these Con Ed courses, like, across the country in New York, so it's just been, absolutely investing in myself and in the business, and just trying to put out good work. I think that's like the biggest goal of mine. Is not, I don't want to, it's not like you don't want to make money, but like you want to make sure that that's not your only intention, right? Yep. I just want to put out good work, man.
No, I hear you. That's fair. I mean, we need that. We need that in the world. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, I think And this is getting into, patient care and stuff, but I think there's obviously there's good doctors, bad doctors, good clinicians, bad clinicians. They're out there. So, it's good at least to have, somebody passionate about it that like enjoys it, wants to do it, and is trying to do their best at it. Like, you know what I mean? Cause I think the world just needs more people that are passionate about what they're doing and not just, doing it, like going through the motions and just collecting a check and just going home. So I think that's awesome. And so like kind of transitioning. So we talk about, the starting the business, we talk about all this other stuff. Now let's talk about, we talked about the past, a little bit of the present, and now like the future as far as like moving forward. Like, you've gotten this rolling and now you're moving forward, you're getting referrals. What's the next step for you, at least for your like personal goals? I know life changes. I know maybe we'll talk and like redo an episode in like 10 years and all of a sudden you're like doing something completely,
all over the place.
We're like completely different. So, but at the moment, as of today, what is your, I guess, moving forward, what's your kind of your just next couple of steps with, your practice, kind of what you're doing, where you're going, what are you thinking? Are you going to scrap it, close it, go to a clinic, or are you going to, kind of keep doing this and just try and grow it and kind of see what happens? What's the plan moving forward for you?
Yeah.
And what demographic do you want to primarily work with? Like,
for sure.
I mean, I know we talked about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the mixed martial arts guys, but like talk about, I'm curious. I want to know.
Yeah. I mean, 2020 is going to be a good year. There's a lot of plans in the works. Currently going through a little bit of a rebranding. So I want to create a brand that better serves the population that I want to serve. So the population that I want to serve, I mentioned earlier, were grapplers. So I love working. I think it's such a dynamic sport. It's so interesting, and all the interesting, I guess, positions and the I guess the ranges of motion that you have to be strong in are very unique to the sport itself. So I'm like, man, this is trying to use a therapy brain and trying to figure out, okay, how can I get somebody back to doing something crazy in jiu-jitsu, so that's my ideal clientele. I think eventually I want to get into maybe one day being able to work with different teams, competition teams, and being like the rehab specialist for that.
Like grappling teams.
Yeah, like grappling
Gotcha.
teams, like for example, around here, like Carlson Gracie teams and Gracie Baja teams and Art of Jiu-Jitsu, autos and stuff like that. But being able to be like the consultant for them if they need anything, or just like their rehab specialist, that would be super great, because then you're working with high level jiu-jitsu athletes, and that's where your passion is at the moment. Like that's where your drive is. That's kind of where I want to head, is being able to get into that world. But really cool. I mean, personally, I have goals too I started jiu-jitsu like a little over a year ago as well. So, I mean, this year I'm going to compete. Yeah. I want to continue training hard. Yeah, first one. So super excited, but super nervous. It's going to be an interesting experience. I'm ready for it. But in terms of the practice, I just want to continue to grow it, just being patient, continue to do the right things. I have a bunch of mentorship programs that I'm going through for next year as well. Okay. And just continuing to invest in myself, continuing to invest in my practice, and just, learning the things that I feel like are going to help me, and just trying to be the best clinician I could possibly be for the people that I have, and, good. Just help people live a better life. Yeah. That's just how it should be.
I love it. I'm glad it's working out. I mean, I kind of went through not like the same thing, because I didn't start private practice, but like with quitting your job, like I know it's not easy, because I had to do that, leaving a stable job and then going on an adventure that you're not really sure how it's going to pan out. So kudos to you for doing it. Yeah. And I think it's hard. It's never easy. And, as you've talked about, like it's not, but it's slowly, again, being patient, but knowing that it's going to work. And there are trials and things that come up that you have to like learn, and you have to reach out and ask for help sometimes. That's one thing I struggle with too, is asking for help. I hate it. Yeah. For some reason, I have a hard time with it, but I'm working on it. I'm getting better at it. And so I think that's awesome that you're doing that.
And I mean, you could totally have an episode, just a full episode on talking about the struggles and the obstacles that you have to overcome in order to, grow your business or even start a business. There's so many things you have to, it's a mental game as much as it is like everything else
like
game.
An operational stuff. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Because I started I mean, but for those listening that may or may not know, but I started me and my friend started a mental health business providing care for suicidal youth between the ages of 7 and 19. And so that was totally different territory for me. They were licensed marriage and family therapists, so they've had experience in this. And they, for me, it was just kind of coming on and getting into a different world. And so I think your roommate's home.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, we'll keep going.
I was like, oh, my God.
But no, it's so anyway, it's something where we started a private practice, and it was a whole thing of learning how to do the business. And anyway, it's a long story, but what's happening? Saying hello to the roommate.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah, no, so I feel you on that one. But and kind of, where was I at with all this? Yeah, anyway, but so it's not easy, basically, is what I'm getting at. So good for you. Kudos.
Thank you.
Just to kind of getting toward the tail end of this, what are some things for you that you I don't know, a few points, 2 or 3, your top points on what you would kind of say to people that are looking into, the physical therapy, athletic training world, whether they're, what are your things that you learned after you finished school? I know we talked about soft skills was one thing that was a major contributing factor, and then we also talked about what was the other one was basically observing and shadowing people and trying to get as much experience. But are there anything you want to add in addition to those as far as recommendations for people looking into going into this field that they may or may not learn in school, whether they're in the program right now and they're getting ready for the workforce, or they're just thinking about it?
Yeah.
What are some other tips you can give them
other tips.
If you've got a couple of them?
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually was at Chapman for the PT program, and I did a little lunchtime special talk on a presentation on just Cash PT World and what to do to get into it and how I got into it, So one of the biggest tips I gave them was, obviously find good mentors, right? So surround yourself with people that are going to help you, get to where you want to be, and not in a and this is something that I've definitely been learning is if you invest in somebody, they're more likely to invest back into you because they know that you've already invested into them. So a lot of my mentors now, I've taken the time to, like I said, pay for their whatever they're providing me, and investing not just in myself but in them. And they look at it as, well, you have taken the time and the money and the whatever, the effort and all of these things to invest in me as a mentor, that I want to give you everything, that you're my mentee, right? And another thing, just really, really simple, I guess, to go along that is just be a good person. At the end of the day, if we're out here trying to make gains just for your own personal, your personal aspect, but you're willing to step on people's toes and willing to do all these things, that's only going to get you so far.
Not the way to,
right?
Not the way to go about it.
And your network becomes super important the older you get.
Yes.
It opens doors.
1,000%.
It opens doors. And if you're able to be a good person and just have a bunch of people who, can say good things about you wherever they go, you're more likely to be successful in what you want to do than somebody who just says, I don't care about the bridges that I burn. I'm just going to do it. You know what I mean? I don't care because
I'm going to be me and do me.
Yeah, it's just going to give me a next step up. That doesn't help. If you're just a good person, good things will happen. And that's, I mean,
from a believer in that too.
Yeah. These last
100%.
6-7 months, I've definitely learned that is, you're a good person. People like you. You'll be okay.
That's awesome.
So.
I love it. Well, good. That's perfect. Well, I appreciate it. This has been fun doing this little
super
podcast.
Fun. This is the first ever podcast I've ever done.
Yes.
So
I can't
wait.
Thank
you for having me.
Oh yeah, no, this is great.
Yeah, I was a little nervous because I was like, I don't know if I would stumble on my words, but I guess.
No, you did great. It sounds great. I think it was, it was perfect. And so, But did you want to, before I forget, as far as if people wanted to reach out, so Diana is your clinic, your location. If you want to kind of let people know if there's anybody listening that's in the area, especially if you're a grappler, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, anybody, make sure you guys reach out to her. If you want to let them know kind of where your clinic's at, what area, where they can find you on Instagram and whatnot, what's the best way to contact you. If there's somebody that's, looking for some sort of care from you.
Yeah, or advice. I mean, I'm definitely open to, if you have any questions about any of these things. Granted, I'm still pretty early on in the stage of building my business, but I can at least help you maneuver some of the beginning stages. I'm not an expert at all. I still have a lot of room to grow, but I can help you weave the difficulties in the beginning.
Yeah.
So my Instagram right now is at Top Tier Rehab Perform, but like I said, I'm going through a little bit of a rebrand, so probably going to be changing a few things on the Instagram page soon. Okay. But that's where you can find me right now. And then where I work out of is called OC Performance Coaches, so I mentioned them earlier. It's out in Laguna Hills, in Southern California, kind of South Orange County area.
Perfect.
Well, I don't know. I mean, just hit me up.
Yeah. We'll
let's
have
chat.
We'll have them reach out. They can find you through Instagram, but on the rebrand, what I'll do is I'll put it in the the show notes. Cool. And then I'll put it in the show notes whenever you kind of get that rebranding done. Again, that's whole nother project. So I get it. And then, but we'll throw that in the show notes for you guys watching or listening, because we're doing both a video and an audio podcast. So if you guys are listening on one of the podcast app, if you want to watch the video and look at our beautiful faces, you can just jump on YouTube and search my name. It'll come up if you feel like actually watching it. But anyway, yeah. Thanks, Diana.
Thank you so much.
I'm interested to see when we do it.
Maybe in a year.
In a year or two or three, and have updates and be like, so Diana, where you at now? Things going good, or are you homeless and on the street?
Hopefully not the latter.
Just kidding. No, you won't be.
No. It's lots of exciting things to come in 2020. So
that'll be good.
I'm excited to share. Yep.
Well, good luck to you. You let me know if you need anything. Guys, support her if you're in the SoCal area. I swear, if you don't, I'm going to punch you. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to punch you.
He's aggressive. He's aggressive sometimes. He does jiu-jitsu too, so.
I do. And I love it. It's so much fun. But and this worked out. You got a nice little jiu-jitsu painting here in the background.
Yeah. Because one of my roommates does jiu-jitsu as well. So.
Man.
We're a jiu-jitsu home. A UFC home, I guess.
Jiu-jitsu life.
I guess. Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, Dana. Well, I think, it's a good spot to wrap it up. Thanks again. And you guys watching and listening, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you all later.
Soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.